Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the Oregon Bowl Season 3 Roundup. We've had quite an exciting league, and here with me today, George Encinosa.
Welcome, gentlemen.
We're going to be co-commentating this sort of special recap video. We're the losing co-commentators. George and I did not make it into the top four, unfortunately. George, this is your first season with us, and your first time playing Blood Bowl. What are your kind of your thoughts about the game?
It's an interesting game. It's really hard to actually start up on, not because of the fact that the mechanics are hard. It's just a lot of times you forget about certain things like right-clicking. Never forget to actually take an extra 2 seconds to get out of your character before going ahead and taking a step forward. This cost me a lot of games where I could have had that touchdown, I could have had that final play, and maybe possibly gotten a little bit further. The other thing too is coming into this is it's a little bit hard to get a hold of people, but that's something that we're also working on moving forward.
Absolutely, and that's something these videos are sort of designed to combat is that, I give everyone a week to get their matches done, and you think people could get a hold of each other in a week, at least for an hour. But it just ends up not happening. Real life happens, and we had a lot of holidays over the season, so not too bad, but we're considering this your practice season, right?
Yes, absolutely. I took no wins. I did take two draws, and I did concede once to Matt, which I was told is a bad thing. I did that on the whim of the fact that I could not win, and knowing that I could not win, I
Right.
decided to take the loss to save the time.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
th- it is something that it is kind of not so good, so you have to keep an eye on what you're doing on the field, so you're not making mistakes that you feel like you're wasting your time playing onward.
See, it's a very tricky game because you think it's a casual game because it's turn-based and you only need to play an hour a week. But at the same time, for that hour that you're playing the game, you need to be focused because the game absolutely punishes wrong moves. Like we saw in some of your games, one accidental pass to the wrong player loses you the game.
Yes, it
Yes.
it really does.
But with that said, this was your first experience with Blood Bowl as a whole. What did you think about the actual gameplay? Besides the season aspect of it, the getting a hold of players, the conceding, how do you like the game?
The game is actually really easy to pick up and play, which makes it a great game for anybody to recommend and saying, "Hey, come on, let's get these people together and start playing onward." As far as like playing it the single player mode, I think that makes it harder. What makes it more enjoyable is the fact that you're getting your team, you're creating a team, and you're seeing it grow as you play along with it.
Hmm.
I haven't played Blood Bowl 1, but from what I understand, a lot of the glitches and a lot of the problems that were done in Blood Bowl 1 were taken care of in Blood Bowl 2.
Absolutely. And speaking of teams and growth, let's take a look at the teams tab. And let's go into your team, the Procrastination Lizards, and let's talk about them a little bit. I'm in the team roster right now of the Procrastination Lizards team. And I'm looking at your team, and I'm seeing you've got Gorodal, a level 2 skink. You've got Udahex, a level 2 Saurus. Krokwa, a level 2 Croxagore. What were your thoughts on how the Lizardmen played, how your team progressed? Were there any surprises or any difficulties in their particular playstyle?
I was actually really impressed how they played. I basically played them because it's a running theme of mine. Anytime I have a lizard, that's the kind of person I'm going to try to be in. So this actually made it a lot easier to play playing the lizardmen simply because that their skinks were really quick and you could make some incredible plays. And then I made some incredible lucky plays with
Hmm.
these passings. The
Yep.
also the Croxador, it made it a little bit harder to play with him because he has that bonehead
Yep.
ability. So he did not want to do some of those things I really was hoping he could do as far as blocking and keeping people away.
Right. He is a very powerful character, but like you said, that bonehead ability it really makes it difficult to position him.
I'm kind of hoping next season when I bring these guys forward, I'll be able to play a little bit better with them, seeing as now that I know a little bit more about it.
Let's talk about that for a second. I'm taking a look at your team here, and you mentioned you're going to bring them back for next season because I am giving players the option of making a new team or bringing their old team back. You're going to bring them back?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the guys, I do have a couple of level 2 players, but I don't think that somebody brand new is going to be affected too much by two or three the three level two players I have.
Hmm.
It's kind of like having a couple of veteran players among the whole bunch of new players, which I do have a lot of.
Exactly, exactly. And the game has an interesting way of balancing because due to the fact that you have these higher level players, your team value's higher. So when you're playing against an opponent with lower level players, they'll get more deducement money at the beginning of the match to buy bonuses for the match. So it's sort of a way the game has of balancing itself when new players are playing against these players bringing veteran teams.
Which is great because you wouldn't think that it makes that much of a difference, but I'm starting to notice if once that imbalance is really great, it actually does balance it really well,
Mm.
especially when it gives you a couple of re-rolls and a couple of other things that make
Are
things a
magic
lot easier for
sponges
you to
really
continue forward.
magical, Bob?
Yep,
That's a
yep.
trade
I see you
secret,
have one
Joe.
injury on your team. This skink over here. He has a smashed collarbone, loses 1 point in strength.
Yeah, I'm working on seeing if I can't try to get another player coming into there. This way I can trade him out. At the
Right,
current
just
moment, I don't have any gold for it, so
at one strength, he is not the strongest player on the team.
no, I probably end up using him more to make those bigger run plays or keep him in the background
Hmm.
uh, to kind of balance things out.
Exactly. Well, let's go back to the rest of the teams and take a look at the Hearthstoners. This was my human team. And I was not too impressed, to be honest with you. I had been told that the humans were sort of a blank slate, sort of a team that could go a lot of different directions. The trouble was with how short our season was, they never really got to specialize. They never really developed into the fighting force that they could have been.
So you
Um,
feel like this is more of a second to third season team that
Oh,
if you continue on.
absolutely, absolutely. And I am tempted to take them again, but I did accrue 3 injuries on Trump, Firebat, and Kripparrian. And while many of my players are level 2, and they're starting to develop those skills that make them necessary for play, their their lack of stats, their lack of roles, really hurt.
So I
Um,
am looking at the team roster here. You do have a couple players that can level up.
I do, I do. And I hadn't leveled them up yet because I wasn't quite certain what direction I wanted those players to go. But I think it's a bit redundant because I'm pretty certain that I will be bringing a new team next season. The Empire Methrat Skaven team will be making another appearance. They were, of course, season 1 semifinalists,
I'm getting
so
bored,
that'll be
kid.
exciting for everyone
You
to see
know I
coming
have the
back.
attention span of a constipated snotling. When are you gonna get
Let's
to
take
see
a
a day?
look at the schedule tab. And let's kind of go through each of the days and talk about some of the victories, some of the defeats. I'm looking at day 1 of 5 here,
All right.
and let's take a look at some of these matchups. So we had Ryan's team, Red Cross Disaster Relief, the Chaos team, up against Robert's Blitzstrider High Elf team in a 2-1. Procrastination Lizards, your Lizardman team, against my human team, the Hearthstoners, 1-2. Let's talk about that match a little bit. That was your very first match playing Blood Bowl, am I correct?
Yes, absolutely. I never touched the game prior. I was unsure how to play this one. You did take a couple of extra steps as to teach me how to play it. Took about, I would say, about 2 to 3 minutes to understand how to play it. I did have a couple of stumblings, and I mentioned earlier there was one crucial play that I accidentally made that cost me the game.
Absolutely, absolutely. There were a couple times where you would throw the ball backwards to one of your Saurus because of that right-click snafu. This was an incredibly close game, and I for one, was actually very impressed with the ability that you were presenting, because the first few games of this game that I personally played, I lost completely. I couldn't even beat the computer. So I was really impressed with sort of the finesse that you were able to bring, and I'm really excited to see you in season 2 now that you have some experience under your belt.
I'm looking forward to bringing it into season two. I'm kind of hoping that I can kind of match up what Matt brought onto the gameplay. We'll mention that once we get to that game itself.
Absolutely. We had the infamous Jurassic Park Ruffians against
What
Lydia's
path do
Circus
X3
zero
supposed to
zero
use
game.
for when you were
Of course,
playing
they
ball?
were
Self
not able to play
polishing
this
cream
match,
manufacturer?
and they lived
No,
together.
I got no
So they
idea
had a
where
week to
these
play this
batteries are
hour-long
located.
match. They both live in the same house. They were highly criticized for this move. It was the very first game of the season, um, and there really was no excuse for not playing the match. So that was a very big disappointment, and to be honest with you, it was sort of an early indication of how the rest of the season is going to play out. I mean, like I said, this was holiday season. That's the nickname for this season. It was supposed to be the Blood Bowl 2 Invitational, since this was our first Blood Bowl 2 season, but I'm nicknaming it the Holiday Draw season because of the amount of games that were not played.
Oh, the amount of
Uh,
games that were draws wasn't. I mean, as we'll see later on, I had two draws, and it was simply because of the scheduling problems
yep.
trying to move forward.
Hopefully, with the new year, those problems will be gone. Let's move into day two. Day two, we had Blitz Strider, Robert's High Elf team against Circus, Lydia's Chaos team, in a 2-0 absolute smash fest, quote unquote, from Robert. I absolutely crushed her. Um, Heard from Lydia that she got a couple injuries there. She actually didn't, so I'm not certain where her head was at. But maybe she was just trying to gain some face from just being absolutely destroyed.
That's possible.
We had the Jurassic Park Ruffians Lizardmen team against the Hearthstoners, my human team, in a 2-1 very close game. I think he ended up scoring that final touchdown on the last turn of the game or close to it.
Did you
Very
know
similar to the game
the
you and I
Sky
played in the
Magazine
first
trophy
week,
was forged in
except I was on the
hellfire?
receiving end of the
Deep
Lizardman
beneath the
stomp down
blighted
instead of you
cigarette,
being on the receiving
charred
end of
the
the human
grooves.
stomp down.
Many slaves died
And I
for
think
me.
this game actually kind of
But
crushed
then,
my
it was
hopes
the lowest
for the
bid.
remainder of the season because I finally sort of realized exactly how weak the humans were playing. I saw them struggling against you in your very first game of Blood Bowl, and then I saw them get absolutely destroyed by a more veteran player, and that sort of did away with my spirits there.
Hmm.
And we
Uh,
had
this is
your.
something that I definitely should point out. I'll talk about this more when we get to my match against Matthew. Uh, Lizardman is actually a tremendously great team to start out with. They're really well balanced as far as a team goes, so it's really easy for them to play on to as far as a beginner's players to
Oh
jump
yeah,
into.
because they're very specialized. You have the Saurus, and their whole job is to punch, and you have the Skinks, and their whole job is to pick up the ball and run. There's not a whole lot of intense strategic play behind that. You have two different players that are very good at the job they do.
Yeah, and this doesn't mean that those Sosaurus isn't going to be able to pick up that ball because I did have that play that I accidentally threw it to that, and he caught it. I couldn't believe that I actually rolled to catch it, but he did catch it, and it gave me an advantage that I didn't think about, which is the fact that he was harder to knock down, so I was able to make him to move forward.
Yep, yep. And we had the Procrastination Lizards, your Lizardman team, against Ryan's Chaos team, the Red Cross Disaster Relief, 0-2. Tell me how that game went.
Now that game was actually pretty
Well, you
close,
can't
and
beat
again, the
the
same thing that
dirty,
happened
sweet
with
world.
you
Always
also
upgrade
happened
the
in this
meals
game.
to
I had
glutton
an
size,
incredible
though,
chance to
or
make
else
two
you won't
touchdowns,
get enough
and both of the
fries.
times I screwed up by forgetting to right click, passing the ball completely backwards, and
Yep,
losing 2 to 3 turns.
yep. And what did you think about the way Ryan played his Chaos team?
He was actually a really well played out team. Towards the end, he did play the waste time game,
Oh yeah.
which it's kind of a cheap move in
Did he
my
did he
opinion.
take the ball and hide in the corner with it?
He did. He took like 2 or 3 turns where he hid the ball in the corner,
Yep.
and that was fine because again, if something like that does happen, don't get frustrated at the fact that you are. Oh my God, he's being a cheap. Uh,
Oh man, that nothing gets me quite as angry as that.
uh, get even. My
Yep.
opinion is get even on that. All right, fine. You're gonna go stand. Then I'm gonna crowd one person, and I'm gonna cause you an injury
Yep.
for a
And if
fact.
there's one takeaway from this commentary, it's that Ryan is a dirty bastard and you should get even on him.
Well, there's. I have another comment on that one, but we'll wait until day 3 to come on that.
Alrighty. Well, I think day two was the only day in which every game was played. So week two of the league was very good. Let's look at day three. We had Blitzstrider's High Elf team against the Hearthstoners, my human team. Again, I got my face crushed. Robert was sort of taken aback because he had played Lydia the week before and he was very confident and he met a lot of resistance in my human team. But really, all the game was it was a slow, drawn out touchdown. It was him just slowly gaining ground, and me just trying to tie the game, and it just didn't happen. There was one infamous play that Robert made in which he was able to
Don't be
score a
stupid,
touchdown on a
Jim.
going for it,
Nobody ever
and
reads the
instead opted to
instructions.
pass the ball to another player, and the pass failed because passing a ball is risky in Blood Bowl. And there was quite a few screams from some of the players watching. I think Matthew and Ryan were both watching, and Robert was not very happy. I think quote unquote from Matthew in all capital letters. What the fuck is he doing? this game, this game could have very easily been a 2-0, is what I'm trying to say. But Robert got a little greedy. He was a little overconfident coming out of his game with Lydia, but he still managed to pick up the win 1-0.
It sounded like he really wanted more along the lines of that experience points. He really wanted to get some of those players going, especially coming into the finals rounds into this. He wanted that stronger team.
Exactly, exactly. Especially since he's playing one of the more agile teams, and the other teams in the top four are very punchy.
That could be a problem for him.
Yep. Or it could be a huge advantage. Um, let's take a look at Circus versus Red Cross Disaster Relief. This was the week of mirror matches. This is two Chaos teams facing each other. Ryan beats Lydia in a 2-0. I didn't hear a whole lot of commentary on this game. No, I did. This was the match that Matthew played for Lydia on behalf of Lydia, pretended to be Lydia because Lydia was tired. Ryan picked up on it very quickly because Ryan is not an idiot, and that was a bit controversial as well. Let's rename this season the season of Lydia's controversies,
Fan on Twitter has just said
because
to
there's
Rana,
another controversy that I would like to touch on, sort of in the opposite spectrum later on. But yeah, it was a stomp down. I'm not going to say Matthew threw the game, but I am going to say he built Lydia's team for her, and he intentionally built it wrong, which is something that Lydia's very pissed about. She's not happy, but we'll touch on that a little bit later as well.
So you're saying that we're not possibly going to be seeing Circus again next season?
We are not possibly going to be seeing Circus again next season, and I will talk about that. But this was a 2-0 decisive victory for Ryan. No real no real resistance here. Let's talk about your match. Jurassic Park Ruffians versus Procrastination Lizards, two Lizardman teams. It ended in a 2-0. What are your thoughts?
Now, this is something that was very interesting because I was able to look at what it is that this team should have been able to bring, especially during season week 1 and week 2, with my characters moving forward. I noticed how Matt was able to portray a lot of the characters. Plus, I got to learn a lot about the Skanks and how they were able to get away with things. One of my major downfalls, which is something that is definitely should be pointed out, is walking along the edges is probably a bad idea. Yes, it could get you some great plays, it could get you some great distances, but you run the extreme risk of injuring all your players.
Yep.
And this is what happened to me. Matter of fact, I did concede this match, which is what I mentioned earlier. And it's because of the fact that I was running on along the sides, and Matt got me to push out towards into it. I did have some opportunities to move forward. I did play a hell of a lot better than I did in the previous 2 weeks.
I'm looking forward to these
Simply
next
because
three
I
matches,
took the little
Bob.
bit of time to make sure that I unclicked every character before I moved on forward. Plus, I did a lot more passing and a lot more risk playing, simply because I knew that I was not going to win. He did do a play that, again, I do honestly think it's a very cheap play, which is kind of hoard the ball closer towards the end goal.
Yep. Yeah. That's let's touch on that a little bit. It's called surfing, and it's when a player is standing on the very outside of the pitch, and a push or a tackle out of the pitch results in him getting pushed out of the pitch, and the crowd comes out and stomps their face, as you've seen, and it results in like an extra roll on the armor break table, where an extra opportunity to injure the player, and the player is out for the rest of the drive, similar to a knockout. And I'm sorry that I forgot to mention that to you in the first week. I honestly, there's a lot to this game. It slipped my mind, but that's one of the major sort of risk reward sort of things about running the outside of the field like that. The outside of the field is often clear because everyone's too scared to approach it. But on the flip side of that, everyone's too scared to approach the opposite side of the field. So if you can get a very fast player on the opposite side of the field, they can run it in. But like you saw, risk reward, and sometimes the risk gets you.
Which is what happened. The risk did get me. My plan was kind of working. It almost caused me a great couple great plays. I did want to take that risk. but looking back on it, I should have made sure that I was still had some runners on there. If I had two runners, even by losing two
Now
runners,
have
I
your
had two
arms
more runners,
sawn
I
off
probably
with
wouldn't
a
have conceded
rusty
into
blade.
this game
I want
simply
it
because I would
warm.
have still been able to
Warm, I
play.
said. Body temperature.
So
Uh,
that's
and like you said, you got to learn a little bit about how
Arms
a
cold?
more veteran player can play the
No,
Lizardman
it
team.
isn't.
right,
And
which was
why should
incredible to
my
see how that was done. If
one
Matt,
be
if you're
any
watching that, that
different?
was an incredible second game.
Is this
We did play
microphone on?
twice. I am going to mention this, guys. If you are very tired or if you don't think you're going to be able to play, tell them reschedule that game
Yep.
because I was very exhausted. I really wasn't in the mood, and the very beginning, I think it was the second round, the second turn, he pretty much stopped dead short of a touchdown, and it just pissed me off to the point that I'm done. I didn't want to do it.
Yep.
We did have to have Nathan reset the game for us, and the second game again was a lot more further along. Yes, I did concede, but at the same time, it was because I couldn't win, and but I played a lot better, and I did push a lot more than I did beforehand.
Yep. Well, let's take a look at day 4. Day 4, we had Matthew's Jurassic Park Ruffians against Robert's Blitzstrider. Ended in a 2-1 for Matthew. Um, and I honestly, I don't think I heard much about this match or how it played out. Oh, I recall this match. See, I know all these matches. This match, they attempted to play on the night that the league was going to roll over, and the
Did you
league
know? It's
cut
a
them
rumor
off.
that
They tried to play it at like 10
magazine
o'clock at night or
editor,
something.
your
And the league cut them off
actually
and decided the
hates
fate of the game
sport
for them.
and
So
would
they didn't
rather
actually get to play
with
this game.
action figures
The league
instead.
rolled in
This
favor
has
of
nothing to do
Matthew's
with
Jurassic Park
bad
Ruffians,
mouthing
winning
me
him
in that
2 to
last
1.
issue, of course.
So he auto won this game. But we had Circus against your Procrastination Lizards. You didn't get to play this game either.
Yeah, unfortunately, this goes back to the things about it was really hard to do this holiday season. It was really hard to communicate with everybody. Hopefully that fixes next year. I'm gonna try to emphasize this. Try to get a hold of everybody on Facebook, especially even if it's on Blood Bowl. Everybody should be signed into the Blood Bowl groups. Just hey, okay, I want to play it this time. Does that sound good to you?
Hmm.
And then this way we can actually set that up and do it. Because this week and the following week that you're gonna see, I didn't play either game because neither one of us communicated.
Yep.
We were expecting the other person to communicate with us.
Yep. And then that just doesn't work out. But like I said, it's too bad you didn't get to play this game because at this point, neither of you had yet won a game of Blood Bowl.
Yes.
So it really would have been an interesting match.
Yeah, it would have been a great match to see. I would have loved to face off against Lydia. Maybe I would have taken the win. Maybe she would have taken that win. I would have loved to seen how that happened. This was the week of Christmas, so that made it extra hard.
Absolutely. Well, the two people who didn't have lives this week, myself and Ryan, now it says 0-0 there, but we actually played this match. This was a long and grueling tug of war over the center of the pitch. Tears were shed. Ryan was pulling his hair out because at this point I knew that the human Hearthstoner team was going nowhere. So my whole goal was to stall the match, and I did. The ball never left the middle of the field. There was punches thrown. There was some absolutely lucky rolls on my part. I think on one turn, I dodged 6 or 7 of my players out of tackle zones, which is unheard of for players that don't have the dodge skill. It's absolutely unheard of. And at one point he was about 4 or 5 squares from the end zone, and I stole the ball from him and threw it back across the field. Not even to one of my players, just threw it back across the field because I didn't want him to have it. So very frustrating match for Ryan. He was so close several times, 2 or 3 times there to scoring that game-winning touchdown, but the Hearthstoners really showed that they could really just kind of punch with the best of them. And we were never close to scoring, but man, did we tie that game hard. Let's go into day 5. So this was this was apparently the definitive week because this was the last week of the round robin, and we had Blitzstrider against your Procrastination Lizards. This was the game that you mentioned, the second game that you could not play.
Yeah, and then this goes again. This was really, really hard for me. This week was me traveling a lot, me running around a lot. I was exhausted all week, and so this just made it impossible. And neither one of us try to get a hold of each other.
How do I look
It's
in
not
each
his
table?
fault.
A
It
whiter
is as
shade
much
of
his fault
pale.
as it is my fault for not trying to get a hold of each other when we could have just kind of said, "Hey, let's play on this day or that day." I didn't even realize we were even playing this week. I thought it was kind of a bye week, but again, this goes back to the whole. Let's make sure that we have some sort of communication. Hey, we're playing this week. Let's try to aim for this day.
Absolutely. Next, we had Red Cross Disaster Relief against Jurassic Park Ruffians. Ryan absolutely furious that he tied a second time. I heard that this game was bloody. I heard that this game was grueling, similar to my game against him. Both teams got their touchdowns, so there was some good experience points to be had. Um, but absolutely two ties in a row for Ryan. And Ryan is a veteran player. Ryan was the season one champion. He went to season two semifinals. And here in season three, he's going into the top four. But here, just two ties in a row lately, he is frustrated, and he's out for blood in this top four. I imagine he is just chomping at the bit,
Uh,
ready for some victory.
This makes me happy. I'm actually not playing just because of this reason. Now I get to just sit back and watch and laugh as these guys get their crap beaten out of them. This does give a slight disadvantage to both me and Nathan, simply because we won't be able to get those experienced players to get more experience, but that's the way the cookie crumbles.
But at the same time, the top fours are a deadly place with so many players who have leveled up these
The
deadly
man from
skills like block,
Outlaw. It's
stuff
said
like
there
frenzy.
is no safer
Um,
place for your
more
money.
players are going to start to
That's
get injured,
because they
especially
share
with
the
three
vault
punchy
with the
teams in the
gold
top
wizard,
four. So who
and
knows? I
nobody
mean,
can
if two or
steal
three of
from
these
them.
players die on his team in these coming two games, we might not see the Red Cross Disaster Relief come back.
You might have to re-roll a whole new set.
Yep. And finally, we have the Hearthstoners against Circus. This was Lydia's first win in a Blood Bowl season with us, I believe. This was a great match. She played extremely well. My one touchdown was extremely lucky, and it was close to the end of the game. It was a bloodbath, and like I said, the humans do not perform. I was thoroughly unimpressed. Her Chaos team slayed me. It was completely unfair. She made amazing moves. She's really comparing this match to some of the matches she played in season one, some of the matches she played in season two, she's learned so much, and she's a force to be reckoned with. This is the first time she's ever made it into the top four. This is the first time she's ever won a match. It excites me because at this point, I mean, let's be honest here. She used to be a free win. She used to be a Raya, and now she's a player who you play against, and you might lose from this moment on. And maybe she's just sort of hit a chord with the Chaos team. You didn't get to play against her, unfortunately, so you're not quite, on par with the experience I had. But I was impressed.
We'll see what happens on this one. I'm kind of really disappointed I did not get a chance to play against Lydia. I think that this would have been one of the more even matches. I may have stood a chance, as I don't think she would have spent as much. She would have spent as much
Spike
time taking
Magazine.
time to prepare as I did.
Periodical both
So this would have
players
been one of
and
these things of
fans
two
read.
complete noobs trying to take it out on each other and take the win.
Well,
It
that's
would have been a
she's
great
not a
game.
noob. She has played our other two seasons of Blood Bowl. She's just never won a single game
So
until now.
she's like the Detroit Lions of Blood Bowl right now.
Exactly. She
Oh,
is she is the Lions of Blood Bowl. And hey, the Lions have won 3 games this season.
yeah, against the Packers. That was one of the hardest wins.
Okay, we could talk about that for hours. But let's take a look at the leaderboard and see where the season ended. Sixth place, we have the Procrastination Lizards, 0-2 with 0-2 and 3. Fifth place, the Hearthstoners, 1-1 and 3. So that takes us out of the top four, and now we have the top four teams. We've got Lydia's Chaos Team Circus coming in at 920 team value, making her the smallest team value in the top four, which is actually might be an advantage because that means she's going to get more of that inducement cash, like we mentioned before.
Hmm.
She's coming in at 1 win, 2 draws, 2 losses.
Which was it's an incredible thing because that just means this is kind of harsh because of the fact that she only won simply because of the fact that she did not play 2 games, and that's how she's in the top 4.
Hey,
Nothing
she beat
against her
me.
on
She
that.
beat me.
I just feel that that was kind of a cheap way to go in.
Sure, but I mean, at the same time, she beat me, so at least we would have been tied.
Well, that's
Something to think about.
again. If she would have played that game against me, maybe she would have 2 wins and 1 and 2 losses with two.
Exactly, exactly. We'll never know. So I think that's sort of rhetoric that's not even worth discussing. Coming
But
in, coming
needless
in
to
third
say,
So
make
tonight,
sure that
Stu,
we
place.
play those
Big
games though.
Jomo
Make sure we
Harefoot
actually get
comes
those
back from
games
the
in
dead
so we
to
can
talk
get
about
these
his
really good. So
remarkably
nobody's
short
saying, "Hey, she's
tenure
only
as
in," or
captain
"He's
of
only
the
in because he's got
Greenfield
2 draws."
Grasshuggers.
Exactly, exactly. And hey, don't mock my draws. Coming in at third place, the only quick team on the top four, Robert's Blitzstrider High Elf team. This is a team I have a lot of respect for because this is the only other team in the league that named their players besides my Hearthstoners. He had an unconventional naming theme for sure, but he actually took the time to personalize each of his characters, which I have a ton of respect for. And he's coming in with 2 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses. I'm excited to see a quick team coming out on the pitch, and I'm excited to see how well the High Elves will perform because I don't think we've ever seen a High Elf team in any of our seasons before. In second place, Matthew's Lizardman team, the Jurassic Park Ruffians, making a comeback with 3 wins, 2 draws. Like you said, veteran Lizardman team. The Lizardmen are a strong contender. Ryan made mention that he thinks they're OP. I don't agree, but they're definitely a very strong race
I,
with a lot of versatility.
this is the team to watch. Honestly, this is the one that is going to make some amazing plays. The skiffs that are in there are very agile, and they're able to get away with actually getting through it and possibly getting closer to the end zone. This is going to be a really close match, especially when you have the Ruffians versus the Red Cross Disaster. That's going to be a really great game to
Now, we might
watch.
not get to see that match because the way the top four works out is we're going to have, hopefully, if I can make this work, we're going to have Ryan's Red Cross
Got
Disaster
any
Relief
advice for the budding
against
fiction
Lydia's
hall?
Circus team,
Yeah.
and
Always wear
Matthew's Jurassic Park
underpants,
Ruffians against
'cause you never
Robert's
know who
Blitzstrider in
might
the
be looking.
semifinals. And then the winner of
Some
those
of
two
these
matches are going to go
cameras
to the
work both
finals.
ways.
So it could very well be
Nice
Lydia
shirt,
coming
by the way.
against.
Robert or Matthew.
Mhm.
Yep. But that's how it's supposed to work. I am hoping I can get that to work that way, because that's how it seeds. That's how it's fair. The top teams get to play the lowest teams because they've earned that right as being the top teams to have a higher chance of going on to the finals. If that makes sense to you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we have Ryan's Red Cross Disaster Relief with 3 wins, 2 draws, actually tying with Matthew's Jurassic Park Ruffians. I think he's listed as higher because Chaos starts with a C and Lizardman starts with an L. So I think that's the only determining factor there.
Yeah, because in
Um,
reality, he doesn't have as much points as Matthew's Jurassic Park Ruffians.
right, and honestly, team value means very little in the grand scheme of things. It basically means that your team at a glance is more powerful. Therefore, the other player gets more inducement cash at the start of the match. It absolutely has no effect on how well you've been playing. Like, take a look at Lydia's Circus at 920 team value, lowest by far in the entire league, but she made it into the top four. Let's take a look at the teams tab again, and let's look at each of the teams going into the top four, starting with Lydia's Circus team, and let's take a look at her team roster.
She still needs to level up on this, so her team value could actually go higher.
Now, so she does have this Chaos Warrior that needs to level up, but if you'll notice, his portrait is grayed out, and he's got an injury in the bottom right. This means that because of this injury, he's got a
The
fractured
Guild
arm.
of
He misses the
Bandits
next
and
game he plays.
Affiliated Trades.
So coming into the
I have an
semifinals, she's
honorary
going to be out
membership.
that player
Yes, I
against
saw
Ryan.
your infamous
Um,
after-dinner speech
so
at
if she
last
levels
year's
that player
DDAC
up,
awards.
her team value will
following
rise,
riot
but she
was
won't
really
actually
quite
gain any
wonderful.
advantage because she doesn't get the player anyway. So it's actually in her best interest not to level that player up until after her game with Ryan. Because since she's not going to get to play with him anyway, it's just giving Ryan more inducement money, or in this case, giving her less inducement money because her team value will be closer to Ryan's.
It's very interesting gameplay mechanics you're gonna have to think about too.
Oh yeah, you have to think about these things, but does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, Lydia, that's a good point on that one. Hopefully, you're watching this before you jump into your team and make that mistake.
Absolutely, and I'm hoping she is as well. But let's take a look at the rest of her team here. I see she has a level 2 Chaos Warrior with the block skill, which is always great to see on Chaos Warriors. She also has a level 2 Bestigor, who is also injured, but he has block as well. What's his injury? Let's take a look. Smashed knee. So this just makes them get injured more often. So he doesn't have any drawbacks, he just gets injured more often, which is not the worst injury to have. Traggy Antler, another Bestigor, also has an injury. Smashed knee again. So neither of these players actually get any drawbacks right now, but they've got the potential to really pile on more and more injuries as games go on. She doesn't look like she has any other level ups. But let's talk about this little controversy here. So Lydia didn't actually get to create this team on her own. She had the idea for the team. She was going to call it Circus, and she had in mind what players she wanted. She had in mind how many rerolls she wanted. But Matthew was the person who made the
Have you
team
looked
for
at
her because she
Finch
wasn't
too
home.
recently, Bob? Did
And
you know you have
she
a
is
family
pissed
club?
because he didn't name any of her
Look at it,
characters. She had this whole circus theme that she wanted them all named after like roles in a circus. He named her Minotaur, but he named it Expand Dong. And I think he only gave her one reroll to start off with. Yes, one reroll, no apothecaries. He bought her a fan factor, I think, or maybe she might have earned that. But I think what she wanted originally was no Minotaur. She wanted 2 or 3 rerolls, because I think without the Minotaur she might have been able to afford 3. And she wanted naming conventions on these guys. So she was a bit pissed. So that was like the beginning controversy for the game. And honestly, I think that's the reason she missed 2 of her games, was because she was just not attached to her team. When it's just not the team you wanted, it's not the team that you were really hoping to play, you sort of get disengaged, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it does take some time. Again, this is on the fence of why I wanted to bring back the Lizardmen, procrastination lizards. I'm just attached to the team name.
Yeah.
I would have loved to actually rename some of my players, but then I would lose all the work that I did during season one.
hmm Well, talking about her team here a little more, it's a bit. She's playing against Ryan's Chaos team here. Let's take a look at Ryan's team while we're on this track. We'll take a look at Ryan's team and then talk about their matchup a bit. So I've got Red Cross Disaster Relief up right now, whopping it at a team value 1170. We've got a level 2 Chaos Warrior who's earned himself block. We've got a level 2 Bestigor who's earned himself block. Another level 2 Bestigor who's earned himself Wrestle, which is interesting. If you don't know what Wrestle does, if you get the both down result, both players are placed in their respective squares, even if the other player has block. So block sort of
Did
negates
you
that both down
That
roll,
the
so
new
neither player
Cabal
goes down.
HD
But
glues have
with
been selling
Wrestle,
like
even if he's
hotcakes
playing against a
from
player
all
with block and gets a both down,
Don't
he
confuse
wrestles
the
both of them
viewers,
to the
Jim.
ground, even if they have block.
Means it
So
would
it's sort of
sell
like
it
the
fast,
anti-block skill.
That they're made out of cake and
He has another Bestigor over here, level 2, who looks like he'll be missing his game against Lydia. So he's also down a player against Lydia. Looks like his Bestigor has a smashed ankle. He lost 1 point in movement. And it's one of his level 2 Bestigors with block. So he will be missing that player, and he's got a 4th Bestigor over here with block as well. So they're both down a player. Lydia's down a Chaos Warrior level 2. Ryan's down a Bestigor level 2. What sort of an effect do you think that's going to have on their matchup here? Because and Ryan also, it's worth noting, does not have a Minotaur and has 4 rerolls and an Apothecary. That's 4 rerolls, 3 more than Lydia has, which is going to be huge. I don't know if you're aware of this yet with your limited Blood Bowl experience, but rerolls are everything.
Oh yes, even the small games I've played, it's always that one time. If only I had that one more reroll to save my butt. So I can see that actually happening. This actually I think is going to give her more an advantage because she has that Minotaur and he has that lesser team going into that next game. This is actually going to give Lydia a slight bit of an advantage. He's going to have to now the Ryan's team is going to have to get a little bit of a more of a careful playing through.
So Lydia's team does have the strength advantage with the Minotaur. But like you said, with those big creatures like your Croxagore, positioning them is really important, and it's difficult because they have that idiotic tendency to just stand still. However, she does have that strength advantage, but
Yeah.
Ryan
I've got my
has
birdie
the luck
sweet
advantage on his
burger
side.
and my
He knows that 4 out of every 8
cheesesteak
turns in each
job.
half,
Let's
he can
watch
re-roll a
some
dice he
football.
doesn't like. Whereas Lydia can only do that once. 1 out of every 8 turns in each half is not a lot. That Ryan has 4 times the rerolls she does, which means he can afford to make a lot more mistakes, and he can afford to make a lot more risky plays going into this. So it's going to be interesting to me to see sort of that strength advantage of the Minotaur, that sort of poundy, really tackle-heavy gameplay that Lydia's going for, against gameplay that Ryan's got here that might be a little more methodical, might be a little slower.
I think this is a game that's going to take its time playing right, if that's what Ryan decides to do.
Yep.
That's probably going to work towards his advantage, is playing out this game and trying to get only one touchdown
And
compared to trying to go a lot.
what I'm seeing here is that a lot of Ryan's players have the block skill. Are you aware of what the block skill does?
Uh, you're going to have to run through it.
On the both down roll, if a player has the block skill, they don't go down to the ground. They stand up, or they stay standing. It's a very important skill because it avoids turnovers. Because if you throw a block on your turn and get a both down, and your guy goes down, you pass the turn. Because one of your players fell on your own turn, so it avoids turnovers, and it's a very good defensive skill because it also helps you if you get tackled. Because you have a lower chance of going down. So in that slower gameplay, like you mentioned, I feel like Ryan has a distinct advantage because the more dice that get thrown, the more likely it is that his block is going to be more and more relevant. Because the more dice that get thrown, the more likely that both down roll is going to show up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
Ryan really has that distinct
Never
advantage,
went onto the
where the
field
longer the game
without a
goes,
pair of
um,
orchidas on my
his
team.
skills are going to
They're the
be
only
more and more
ones who
relevant,
get moved
and
in
his
my
4
team.
rerolls are going to see a lot of action. Whereas Lydia can make far fewer mistakes. Lydia does not have the skills to sort of grind out a game. I think Lydia's game plan here is going to be aggression, aggression, aggression. I think Lydia's really going to want to start punching early, get an early touchdown if she can, and she's really going to need to go for that early 1 or 2 touchdowns to win this game. Because
yeah.
if this game goes long, Ryan will just out resource her with all these blocks, with all those rerolls. He just has a lot more resources at his disposal to use. Lydia needs to be aggressive with the Minotaur. She needs to be very forward with her Chaos Warriors, and an early touchdown is going to be key. She's going to have to make a lot more risky running plays. Ryan can avoid, like you saw in your game against Ryan. He really takes the slow game. He cages up, and he holds the ball in the corner because he owns the slow game. Lydia needs to make the game fast.
So lots of luck to her. Hopefully she can make it pretty fast.
Yep.
So we're running this pretty long. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to speed this up. We're at 42 minutes right now.
Oh, crap. Well, let's talk about the game between Matthew and Robert really quick. Lizardman team against the High Elf team. I'm taking a look at Matthew's Lizardman team now. I see a level 2 Skink. I see a level 2 Saurus with block. 3 more level 2 Saurus with block. So Matthew's got a very good defensive line. And his Skink are not where I want them to be. Usually the Skink are the leveled up players on the league, but it looks like he's playing a lot more of a punchy, a lot more of a methodical Lizardman team.
And this goes against his first game against Lydia. He lost points on that one, and he also lost points on myself as well, conceding to him. So he lost
Absolutely.
those
He,
2
he
points
lost a
on
lot
him.
of those touchdown points that the Skinks normally get. So his Skinks, honestly, see how that concession has sort of given him a huge disadvantage here because his Skinks are not the levels that they should be this late into a league. They don't have the skills that they need. They don't have any stat attributes. They're great early game players, but up against higher level players at level 1, the Skinks do not hold merit. Let's take a look at Robert's team. Blitz Strider here. And I'm seeing a level 2 Blitzer with strip ball. Now that's an interesting skill. So Jaeger here with the strip ball mechanic is really going to want to get involved on those skinks with the ball, especially those level 1 skinks who don't have any defensive skills yet. That player Jaeger there is going to be stealing that ball from them all the time. He's a lot stronger than they are. He's got strip ball and block, which means he's not going down. He's a blitzer, so he's got that increased movement. That's a player to keep an eye on. I predict that player will be making some big plays. He's got 2. So both of his blitzers have strip ball and block. Matthew's going to have a tough time against them. He needs to keep his skinks away from those players.
Yeah, that's assuming that he does play against. Well, this is that semi-final. you're going to see
Yes.
that game get really harsh, really quick. Hopefully, if one of them has a recording program, if not,
We
uh,
can watch the replay. We can absolutely watch the replay.
right, and that's something that I definitely want to do coming into these semifinals. The next game you're going to see is I'm actually going to take both of those and then touch on the highlights on them. I'm going to have to like edit that out a little bit.
Um,
So when you
he
finish playing that game, let us know so this way we can
Goblin
go ahead and do
Gambling
that.
are a great
Absolutely.
company
He's
to
got a
be
level 2 thrower over
affiliated
here.
with.
Interesting choice to
Any
get the leader
problems you
skill
may
on the
have are
thrower.
surely
If you're unfamiliar with it,
coincidental.
what leader
There's
does
a
is it
company that
allows him
do
to
a
have an
great deal
extra
of bad
reroll each
gambling
half,
too.
so long as the character with leader
That
is
has nothing
still
to
on the
do
pitch
with
and
my
still standing. So as long as this
spontaneous
character is standing up,
endorsement.
he gets an extra reroll each half, which is insane value. Not only is that, but this is his thrower, so he's already got the pass skill, he's already got the safe throw skill. I'm going to expect a lot of offensive plays with Starcast here being on the pitch. He's also got a level 2 lineman with block, so perfect. He's got another lineman ready to level up, so I imagine we're going to see another block on him. He's got a lineman over here, Wolfgang, with guard, which is interesting. I don't know if you know what guard does, but a player with guard, he assists on a tackle even if he's in another player's tackle zone. So he's great for those middle of the line where he's really toe-to-toe with another opponent right at the start of the half, where you've got your 3 players lined up in the middle. He's great for being right in the middle because he can assist both players on each side, regardless of whether or not he's facing down someone else. Robert's team here, I've never seen the High Elves really played in our seasons before. I'm probably wrong, but I don't think I have, and if I have, they didn't make waves. It's incredible. And it looks like the sort of team that's exactly designed to combat Matthew's Lizardman team. That guard player, it's perfect against those higher strength Saurus who are going to be facing him down in the middle. And both of his blitzers with strip ball is going to be incredible against his lower level skinks. His lower level skinks aren't going to know what hit them. So as long as these blitzers can catch up to those skinks, that's going to be Matthew's game plan, is keeping those skinks one square away from those blitzers, one square out of those blitzers' line of sight at all times. While his Saurus try to pummel down some of these other smaller, weaker players.
Did you know
Robert's game plan here is going to be to
bathroom
kick the ball
facilities have
and
only
steal it.
been built in
And that's
modern
what we're going to see.
stadia since the
He's going to kick the
last
ball and he's going to
decade?
steal it. And he wants to
Before
do that
that,
as
the
quickly as
rate was,
possible because nothing gets down the field faster than a
actually, no
skink.
one knows where it went.
And I think he's going to be able to pull it off. I'm really favoring Robert in this matchup. Matthew, if you're watching, what you're going to want to do is protect those skinks and go after the blitzers with your Saurus. You need to injure those blitzers early.
This has to be a high scoring game or fast scoring game. If not, this is not going to go into Matthew's favor.
I honestly think it's opposite. I honestly think Matthew needs to keep this game long. He needs with these fast movement players like Skinks. It's really tempting to move them all the way down the field and score a 2-turn touchdown. It's just not going to work against Robert's High Elves because Robert's High Elves, they've got those blitzers with that 7 movement. They've got strip ball. They're going to home in on those Skinks that are out in the open and they're going to take them down. Matthew needs to keep his skinks in a cage at all times. He needs to slowly progress them down the field. The problem is, if he does that, Robert's playing High Elves. He's got that thrower who's going to be throwing the ball down the field as soon as he gets the ball. Matthew's Source are really going to need to play some great defensive games. And his skinks are going to be really important for tagging the catcher. I still favor Robert, but this is going to be a fun game to watch. But that just about wraps up my thoughts here. Do you have any parting thoughts for the league?
Well, first of all, before I continue on, my apologies to you guys for actually having the commentators in the background. I didn't know that I had them on, and they've been making comments. So if you can't hear us and you have to rewind, my apologies for that one.
Oh,
I'll fix that out
gosh.
of the next video.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh
troubles.
man. Oh well. We live and learn, right? It's
Yeah,
not like we're
this
not
is
going
not-
for an Oscar.
Yeah, exactly. Not
The
this time
Guild
anyway.
of
Next time we'll have an Oscar.
Created
We'll see you guys at the top 4. It's been a fun season. I'm sorry I'm out of it. But the top 4 games are going to be incredible to watch. I'll get that kicked off here pretty soon, as soon as we get this video up. If you haven't joined the top 4 and you're in it, do it now, or as soon as you see this video. And we'll keep an eye on that. We'll start up our next season when that's over, and we send the trophy to the victor's way. And it's been a lot of fun, guys, and welcome to Blood Bowl 2.
And sorry for the long video. I mean, we're already hitting almost 50 minutes. Matter of fact, I'm trying to prolong this 30 more seconds so we can hit that 50 minutes. And like I say, it's a 50-minute video rather than a 49-minute and 40 seconds. So, again, thank you for dealing with me in the last commentating and talking a little bit more about this. It's a great game to have people going on to. Any final thoughts, Nathan, before I shut this down?
Uh, Kumbaya.
Roger that. And gentlemen, this is George signing off.
And Nathan signing off. Have a good night.
Have a good night.